This is one of my favorite panels in the entire Witch Hat Atelier manga, not because it's funny, cute or magnificent like the rest of them. The reason is that it sticks together everything I love about it. Okay, most of the things, in such a small space. First, it's highly relatable in my career and experience as an artist, particularly an animator, which made me read the thing from the very beginning, and secondly, because we can cross the word draw off and replace it with everything like cook, work, exercise, think, live. This little effort makes us the same in that one moment. We are struggling with the same issues no matter where are we from and what we do for a living. The entire manga is exactly about that, and that's what I would love to share with you. Witch Hat Atelier, or Tongari Bouchi no Atelier in Japanese, is a manga series created by Kamona Shirahama in 2016. Before that, she worked as a freelancer for Marvel, DC and Star Wars comics covers. Apart from that, she also made a one-shot called My Little Noir and two-volume series Aniel and the Villa. The manga currently has 15 volumes in Japan and 94 chapters. It's a fantasy coming-of-age story with elements of body horror. Magic exists in the world, but only the chosen ones, called witches, can use it. It's a gift inherited from your father witch and mother witch. At least that's what witches want us outsiders to believe, that they have something we won't ever be able to use. In reality, however, magic can be used by anyone, and the only thing that separates two main classes in this world is knowledge. Magic can be cast by drawing specific patterns of signs and sigils and then closing them in a form of a circle. The first great rule of witches is not to share this truth with any of the outsiders. I believe that the main page for the anime summarizes the plot perfectly. This is the story of children who encounter despair, yet reach out towards hope. We follow Koko as she discovers magic in a series of tragic events that turns her mother into stone, and after that she starts to learn proper magic under the wings of Qifrey, who for some reason already has 3 other apprentices, but no worries because his husband Olugio is there to help him and prevent anything bad from happening. Right? There is also a spin-off series of Witch Hat Atelier called Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen, illustrated by Hiromi Sato, starting from 2019, which focuses on cooking, and it's more of a slice of life cozy series about making dishes, well-crafted recipes. Okay, so as you can see, I tried making brush bodies, but the tip number 7, which was adding the ice, was very inconvenient and I didn't understand it fully, so I completely massacred them and they don't have ice. Okay, now it's time to test them actually. And they are still hot, so I hope they're gonna be at least tasty. Fuck. They are so fucking good, oh my god. But maybe I undercooked them, I'm not sure. So that's also a possibility, but I like them like that. And additional world building of Witch Hat, introducing species never seen in the original source. It currently has 5 volumes and 49 chapters. It's worth mentioning that events from the spin-off cross with the plot of the main series on various occasions, such as Silverside and Great Hall arcs. This video is a long and deep dive into this world, its characters and story, but I won't cover the art style or paneling of the series. Spoilers up to chapter 94 will be everywhere, and without knowing the story it can be hard to understand the point of discussion, so if you don't know the original manga or the airing anime, I recommend you to read it for yourself first. find your way. Volumes 4 and 5 are one of my personal favorite, as they cover one of the most emotional and action-packed arc of the series so far. The only arc that is close to this in terms of action is a Leech arc, which is like 2 times longer. Emotions in this arc appear thanks to great established and resolved conflict between individual Riche and her soulmate pre-prepared Iuni. Don't get me wrong here, it's not the usual conflict where two characters stand for opposite values, but it's more subtle, more gentle. Riche and Iuni are on the same side while the boys' fear is the enemy they try to compete with. Riche is my girl, it's the girl, the myth, the legend of the series. She starts off as a rather side character, like yes, she's there, but her introverted nature results in having only little lines of dialogue. That being said, her quotes and panels are memorable as hell. She's introverted and she's very comfortable with it. She's a kind of loner like Ryo Yamada from Bocchi the Rock. It's only in these 2 volumes that we can finally get to see who Riche really is, without a shadow cast by Tetia and Agot, and don't let the fact that you can easily misjudge her during your first read fool you, as she quickly grows into one of the most beloved of Qifrey's apprentices. Like me, I'm the fool and I will be punished for that in hell. Iuni, on the other hand, is the apprentice of Master Korkov, devastated psychologically by him in the worst possible way. He has been convinced into thinking that he's not enough, and that's what makes him so unconfident. And I can't help myself here, I have to talk about how well everything is written here. The second pentagram test arc contains 12 chapters, which perfectly suits the 3-act structure and the hero's journey chart that we all know and love. And if not, don't worry, I will explain everything in detail. Because we have 12 chapters, my example will be based on Christopher Vogler's hero journey, not Joseph Campbell's. His journey has 17 points and is referred as a monolith. We start at chapter 18 with a nice introduction to scale wolves, a little nice foreshadowing and new information about Riche. It's here where we can first notice who's gonna be the main focus of an upcoming little story that we're gonna explore, the mind of a girl in a cover picture.
Thank God, finally. What the fuck?
In general, it's a small beginning, like these cheerful opening scenes in nearly every first Stranger Things season episodes or Shire sequence in Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring. Chapter 19 sticks to the chart as a call for an adventure, a changing point. A beloved blue-haired girl is signed for a test, even though she doesn't want it. We also meet Iuni for the first time in the series, and we can take a first look at the main trio of the test. 2 characters I mentioned and Agot. Differences between Agot and Riche are obvious, but the boy adds a little spice to the mix, because he knows the trial from his previously failed attempts. Alyra, a witch friend of Qifrey, will also be with them during the test to make sure they stay safe. This chapter is also the moment of refuse of the call, with Riche and Qifrey's argument, but the last panel is finally crossing the threshold point. From the act structure I mentioned before, it's the point where we end our first act. Setup is done, and we can finally start the proper story. Chapters 20 and 21 are the moments of the first obstacles and solutions. It's also here where the big conflict is happening. Riche helps Iuni fight his fears because she has experienced similar struggles in the past. At the end of chapter 21 there is also a plot twist. The Brimcats will actively sabotage the test. From that point, a big battle begins. First, girls fight Sarasan, even more lore stuff is added as Qifrey, Tetia and Koko are trapped in the Golden City, Iuni gets caught by the Brimcaps in chapter 22, and the major revelation occurs at the end of chapter 24, when Alyra shares with the girls the fact that tattooed spells can't be erased. Later, chapter 25 being the abyss, or rock bottom for our main character, everything went wrong. Agot tries to find Iuni turned into a scale wolf, Riche reaches the end of the test and thinks about her past, and both Qifrey and Alyra are injured. The second act ends with chapter 27, where Koko, Tetia and Agot meet again and come up with a solution on how to help the Wolfman, and Qifrey takes an advantage in a fight with Sarasen. The only thing I don't fully understand is chapter 26, as we spend majority of its pages with Knights Morales for the first time in the series, and they won't play any huge role in the story up until chapter 47. Chapters 28 and 29 are the end, the third act of the story, the final decision for Koko, final fight for Qifrey, and now Olugio, who was called for help by Riche. We also have the reward in the fact that she learns how to be herself while using other people's magic, and a road back with creating a windowway and saying final goodbye to Iuni and Alyra, which in the same time is a wrap-up for the story and return, with literal returning to the end of the Serpent Path. This way the whole arc is perfectly written and structured as both one character story and a storytelling as a medium. I fully believe that it could as well be a standalone story and it would be just amazing. Okay, so I did the test. I asked my friends that don't know the manga to read this specific selection of chapters, and it turns out that it does work, apart from the chapter 26 for the reasons I mentioned, but otherwise it worked. Quote, "The story is great. I really like the theme of learning to draw/express yourself via drawings, almost brought me to tears. I remember there was a lot of information to follow, but over time it did click with me, and even with so many characters, I think it all clicked. My experiment is not scientifically accurate, the number of tests is very low, but I don't have resources to do it on a bigger scale. If someone wants to do that, it could be very interesting. What this manga does perfectly is hate its characters. When I first read the line, "For once ink finds its way into flesh, the change is permanent, there's no coming back," I thought that they would find a solution for this and everything would be back to normal. A classic trope with power of friendship and doing impossible things for the sake of happy ending. And Shirahama absolutely rocks because she does both.
Both is good.
The boy has been rescued, he is not a scale wolf anymore, for some part, but at the same time, girls didn't find a magical solution that works only because plot armor or power of friendship bullshit. Not. The seal is attached to the flesh, but by using rules of magic system, they can at least partially solve the problem. That's so interesting, that's so unique, and I don't know why, but it feels so new, so unnatural. That shouldn't be the case because stories should be interesting and should break our expectations. Okay, but let's get the nerd stuff behind for a while and check on our babies. When we learn about Riche backstories found throughout chapters in the arc, it becomes clear why she acts like this. 4 years before the events of Witch Hat, Riche is accepted as an apprentice of an unknown master thanks to connection with his brother Relithin and probably their parents. Apparently, this shameless, arrogant person treats his pupils like Polish high schools their students, preparing them precisely for tests they are going to take rather than the life after them. Baby can't stick to this, as she is more interested in creating her own spells, rather than redrawing things over and over again, which is boring. So asshole turns into the only known solution to this kind of problem. Bullying! It's a joke. Please don't bully people. But it actually happens because, believe it or not, Shirahama based her teaching system on Poland. That's another joke. I don't even know if Shirahama knows about Poland, but Riche's master in flashback represents this old-fashioned way of strict teaching. Now, it's a highly interesting case with really our big brother, who unfortunately felt under the bastard's pressure, now being worried that his sister will eventually meet the same fate. As he keeps an eye on her from time to time, she either learns or enhances the ability for drawing small seals, so small that the master can't see her own creations during the lectures. Relationship with her brother also creates her biggest fear, not being herself anymore. Relefin's side of the story is revealed much later in chapter 70. Riley was threatened by the master and kept his mouth shut about bad practices, out of pure fear and in order to escape punishment. As he claims it, Richie is much stronger and therefore she frees him and other apprentices from the tyranny by revealing the truth. The experience ruined the relationship between siblings, and it seems to have had a huge impact on Relefin's future, as that may be the reason why he is away from the crowd, feeling safe only alongside Beltaroid. In the same chapter, the duo also reunites with a little help of Richie's magic, which is super cute. We don't know exactly how much time passes between the first pentagram test Richie takes and meeting Qifrey, but the trauma she got from this is still holding on to this day, making her extremely secure towards adults. Throughout all events of second pentagram test, something evolutionary happens in Richie's life. She meets Iuni, and oh boy does he have some trauma. The first impression of him may be as bad as to say that his mind has been completely wiped out by Master Koko and clearly resembles the old Richie's master. That makes him trapped in a self-hatred circle, unable to progress in any direction, as he keeps repeating the same words, same spells, and his hands shake whenever he is seen casting. Bond between Richie and Iuni grows really quickly. At first, our girl may seem a little hostile towards an awkward guy, as he reminds her of a correct ways to use magic, and she uses her own spells to show that there's no such thing. That's where the conflict begins. Richie shows him a different way, her way, to solve Romonon Road, while his mind is restricted to the ways he learned from Kharkov. Then, at the gap that they have to cross to complete the test, something incredible happens. Iuni doesn't believe in himself that he can make it to the other side, but Richie keeps pushing him, encouraging him to think, fighting with him to come up with new ideas to make a room for himself and his magic. Iuni hides under the cloak. Agot wants to interact with him, but at this point Richie is certain she did her job and now everything is up to him. So he lies under the cloak, closing himself in yet another self-hatred circle until he realizes that he's the only one that thinks like this about him. None of the girls is laughing. Ilyra didn't give up on him. That's the side of him that Richie was fighting with. He changes the sign on the cloak, now capturing all the shadows, making himself invisible so that no one can see him casting, and so he can work without his hands shaking. And oh boy, that changes him. Not only he's able to cross the gap on his own, but later when the Brimmed Caps attack, he's the one taking first step to escape them. Richie also receives a palm choir from him, a little pocket for spells to help during the escape, as she doesn't know spells different from her own. Sarasan, the Brimmed Hat, unfortunately catches Iuni at the exact moment he starts to like his new form. The worst nightmare happens. The seal is drawn onto his skin, making a magic tattoo, a spell that can't be cancelled. Iuni turns into a black scale wolf, and Richie, given all the events that they have been through, runs to help him, but Agot stops her. It's clear that she's better prepared for that, so she sends Richie to seek help instead. This is tragic, as we know that Richie worked so hard on getting Iuni to feel more confident. And now when everything is ruined, she can't even help him, being sent to watch over some Myrphons. Or can she? As it turns out later, she can do much more than just help. When she gets to the exit, she's furious, angry at Agot for not believing in her. That's when she finds Iuni's palm choir, the one she got previously, Quickly scanning through seals, she notices how different they are from the normal seals. The one drawn by Iuni have lots of signs. He draws a lot of them because his lines aren't perfectly straight, so their large amount recompensates a lower quality, but he is inside them. Iuni's magic is his magic, not because he uses spells created on his own, but by using classic spells in a different way. It's the same as Koko, which uses her strength to accidentally make faster glyph shoes. She also leaves part of her in those shoes. For Riche, that's a changing point, a way she never considered possible because she was so focused on being herself to the outside world, protecting her originality. As Iuni shows her, drawing someone else's spells doesn't mean you're not original, and that way, she can finally open to the world of real magic. And so she does. Using her small seals she developed to hide her magic, she opens a window at home and calls Olugio for help. As she points out later, it's a spell she couldn't cast without help of others, namely Qifrey, Riley and Iuni, but in the same time this spell couldn't be made without her, as it requires lots of small seals only she's good at. Only now the way to be Riche self and learn magic is complete. At the very end we get the single most heartbreaking moment of the manga. Iuni has to run away with Alira, not to have his memories erased, but before he and Riche say the last goodbye for a little while. The tension is there, we can all feel it, or am I just coping here? The duo hug and promise to see each other again, in hope to learn even more about themselves. How to use someone else's spell while leaving part of you in them. For her it's creating a chain of small seals instead of one big. From a storyteller's perspective, it opens a way for Riche to finally have more and more interactions with the world. The whole arc shown in those 2 volumes is a little and gentle platonic love story, similar to Fujimoto's Look Back, about 2 apprentices that experienced misunderstanding and shaming from their masters. By this shared experience their bond grows beyond our understanding, as working together they both get stronger and discover ways to be truly themselves. Unlike Fujimoto's one-shot, however, we have the aftermath of these events. So later, unfortunately, after 17 chapters, in chapter 46, it's revealed that events from the arc still resonate in Riche, as she created matching rings. Their magic shows you the way to a person that has the other matching rings, so the team won't ever get lost again. And it's not like they are introduced and then forgotten, they are used actively in the Leech arc as well as in the newest chapter, so their importance is there, just like any other invention by more experienced Olugio. Moreover, the same fact is later used in chapter 53 to show Riche interest in managing a magic shop, and points her character into a specific goal she didn't have before. Surprisingly enough, Riche has her own little character development moment in Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen as well. Throughout chapters we read about how much she likes meat, while she isn't really into veggies, and after numerous Qifrey's recipes, she agrees to try something she really doesn't like, a half-moon legumes. She decides to let her master create a recipe with them, as all of the dishes made in the series made her believe that he can make everything tasty, and she is willing to try it for a self-growth, an opportunity to like new food. And unsurprisingly, she likes it. And that's our Riche, just for now. Creation is hard. I think there is a reason why Qifrey fell in love with Olugio the Torch, and it's not because he is a great and well-known witch in the public eye, nor that he is a precious and kind man as a whole. The reason here is that he helps him with cooking, and he's just a really knowledgeable and relatable character. And for real now, there are times where this guy is a better master than his friend. Olugio the Torch, master of fire magic, proud husband and father of 4. Generally, his connection to fire-based magic fits him perfectly, because in chapter 32 we learn that he grew up with Utawin, a member of Knights Morales, in a town known as Godry, and I'm not sure about pronunciation here, and later we discover that the town is placed in an icy lands, therefore it's a little metaphorical that he wants to bring heat and warmth to people. It's just so clever. Back to the topic. Olugio is a tired type of a character right from the start, as he isn't usually seen in the main atelier working on new contraptions ordered by various people, especially royalty. That being said, in chapter 39 it is revealed that he tries his best to avoid these kind of commissions in order to help poverty completely for free. That gives the girls a unique opportunity to see how working in which society may look like and give them occasional tips of self-care and marketing. The first one is primarily explored in the spin-off series, where almost every chapter reminds the readers about right sleep and diet schedules. Olugio is very practical, like in chapter 18, when he gives everyone his new creation, a snack stones, to help them sleep following the events from chapters 15 to 17, where Koko needed medical help from pushing herself too hard, on in 47th, where he shows a makeover mask used to hide his tired self. When girls have a problem with spells, similarly to chapter 32, he's always there with an advice. He's also a person that shows us the price of creativity. He's only an entrance for us to experience how individuals deal with deadlines, burnouts, and much more. The first time we get a glance at this topic is actually before Olugio is introduced in chapter 4, where Koko finds a solution to get a flower growing on floating rocks, which is tend to call Dada Ranch. This encounter is foolish though, as the protagonist quickly solves the problem using her specialty, drawing straight lines, foreshadowed back in chapter 1. This may lead you to think that it's gonna be some cute magical problem solving story where instead of a villain of a week, you have a problem of a chapter, but it's a trick Shirahama does to set expectations and then break them just a volume later. As in Draconic Labyrinth, Koko is proved wrong and literally can't do anything but watch her co-apprentices save them all, while in River Rescue Arc she uses the same fact. Koko's inexperience, this time destroying the river and proving that magic and creation aren't fun anymore. It's a dangerous tool. They suddenly become a threat. A sudden realization that what you can cast can not only solve any issues, but also create them. It's not like all the whimsy and wonder are gone, however, as the very next problem of the chapter covers the topic of overcoming disabilities and finding hope for a future, all in character of Tartar, as he tries to help Koko at the medical facility. Iuni's case I fully uncovered before is another different example. Girls work in a team to save him, but when they finish it's sweet and sorrow at the same time. While Iuni has his human form back and is able to communicate, the win didn't come without the cost of trauma for the characters. To add to that, as shown in the bonus chapter, Iuni kinda gets used to being a scale wolf, even prefers this form over his human body, to keep him and Alyra safe, so there is always an aftermath for each problem. They don't just exist for the sake of existence, they have a huge impact on the whole story, even when some of them take only 2 chapters. Beltaruid's quest is again more a joyful and whimsy one, but how can it not be while you're dealing with this guy? This arc is also the first time girls other than Koko and Riche gets their specialities assigned. Koko gets ideas added to her strength of straight lines, Riche gets originality alongside her small seals, Agot is claimed with technique, as her long time studying is shown throughout numerous previous chapters, and Tetia ends up with purpose, first shown in Draconic Labyrinth arc, where she wanted to help the dragon. It's not a coincidence that 3 of those traits are aspects set to define magic in chapter 73. Girls represent magic in all its glory and want to use it to make the world a better place with original spells. Manga portrays teamwork moments very naturally. As you can see, characters have their own specialities and they combine them together to achieve their common goals. There is nothing enchantingly special about it, but at the same time, that's exactly how the artist's work looks like. We sit next to each other, whether in real life or online, and we talk, discuss ideas, plans, and help one another creating your favorite movies, anime, or games. And finally, we are back to Olugio and the Danger. Introduced in chapter 43, Phantasmal Fireball is a fireball that doesn't burn. It only produces heat and light. Let's not discuss the way the fire gains the energy to be a fire in this one, as burning is the only method in the real world. It's perpetuum mobile, it's magic, don't overthink it too much, there are more things to overthink. But if the fire doesn't burn you in contact and it's safe, then why did I say danger? That is an interesting case that manga implies. What would happen if kids learned that the fire is safe, came across the real fire, the normal fire? Exactly. It's crazy that suddenly we start talking about safety of generations here. It's a warning of how fast magic meant for good turns into something bad. The manga has its rare moments of philosophical disputes about the society and the role of witches in it, and in my opinion they are one of the best parts. They are so good, so interesting. There is also a very important chapter 57 when, in comedic way, Olugio and Tartak's grandfather tell Richie and Tetia about knowing when to stop, recharge batteries, and prevent burnout, which is very funny considering Olugio's fire magic and play with the words here. Olugio really seems to never give up on pointing out his struggles, as the topic shows up almost every time he does, like his shadow. But he isn't the only one, as we often see both apprentices and their master staying up late like in chapter 15, or having a blog, or just being out of ideas like in chapters 11, as well as in the very same chapter as the burnout scene, where the very end panel is the one I've shown you at the very beginning of the video. Next chapter, 58, obviously continues the story, giving Agot a little time to shine, being vulnerable for the first time in the entire manga. Agot and Koko go outside to take some air and relax. In that very moment, they both experience the opposite of their nature. Agot draws for Koko, and Koko draws for herself. This allows them to, at least for a moment, forget about the task and have a nice rest watching silly spells created by Agot. And one of them is a dragon. Agot doesn't usually draw for anyone else than herself, and there is a particular reason for that. She is a member of a house Arcalum, a lineage of high-class witches that serve as librarians in the Tower of Tombs presented in chapter 2. At a young age, she has been accused of stealing and using someone else's spell at her formal debut in order to win the favor of the head of her house and be accepted as an apprentice. Because of that, instead of being welcomed as a young witch, she was banned and found a master in Qifrey as she became his first student. Now, all she does is learn to become better and prove them wrong. Her spells are selfish because of that. She seems to have forgot the purpose of magic's existence. Even Olugio himself notices that when he doesn't allow her to join Silver Eve procession in chapter 50. He points out that procession isn't about drawing attention to yourself, but to the problem your magic is supposed to solve. This idea of drawing just to show off slowly changes in her when she meets Koko. She has a special point of view at every event presented in the manga, as she's originally an outsider, so her mind doesn't have the same boundaries as the other witches, which can be a main source of her creativity. While she's growing as a new witch, she at the same time shows Agot the way she has never thought about before. The possibility that you can fail and try again, like in chapter 6, as well as that you can have satisfaction from casting, like in chapter 34. All of this culminates in the scene I already talked about, where Agot casts spells for Koko, experiencing altruistic magic for the first time in a long while. It's the moment of catharsis that changes her and proves how much she developed over the years. It's surprising how much about this topic, the art block, is said in the bonus chapter of volume 11. It's kind of a short story where Olugio struggles with finishing the spell, so he decides to go take a breather, take a break so that ideas will come to his mind. It isn't as successful as he assumed, however, and at the end, the thing that makes him find an inspiration again is silly doodles, small spells made literally for no purpose other than to exist. Olugio is so real, he's like literally me, 100% for real, for real. It's often true that thinking about big, long-lasting projects can lead our mind to the point where there's seemingly no other way. The process of creation becomes corrupted by the same ideas that create a loop because we are thinking in the same box for a long time. Doodles like the one made by Olugio are the one of the best ways to be productive in a way and at the same time break the cycle of ideas about the previous project, making a way to new original innovations. And the doodles don't have to be silly, it can be another big project, marketing, it can be everything. Thanks to that short break, Koko and Agot finally cleared their minds from the Silver Eve procession stress and ultimately both succeeded in both finishing the spells as well as getting them accepted by the wise in friendship. And I'm not gonna lie here, it's quite a shame that we don't get to see Agot's spell, but at the end the scene we got with Agot helping Koko was so amazing that I can't possibly be mad at it. During the actual procession, however, the audience can once again meet with another perspective of creation, the customers of the spells or town folks, if you wish. Their point of view is focused on functionality, not how much time was spent creating, what they mean to the creators, or how they affect the world as a whole, simply because they don't need it. All they need is a spell that makes their life easier or cheaper in some way. That's why Olugio's spell works so well. He understands the needs of normal people and found his niche, creating glowing paths or pyroballs to make life just a little bit easier and brighter. As Koko doesn't really have that experience yet, her creation gets recognition only after small adjustments from Agot, which once again shouts teamwork, as only working together as a group we can create a truly breathtaking things. This is emphasized later in the Valence Leech arc, where each of the main characters gets a spotlight, a little part to play in both rescuing people from Ezra's city and with fighting the Leech itself. What is the best about it is that all of the ways they used there were shown previously as far as the very beginning of the story. First, while people are hiding from the Leech outside of the town, Tetia gives people sunstands as shelter while Richie's contraption helps them find each other in the mess. Next, during the fight with the Lich itself, Koko comes up with an idea of how to defeat the creature, later adding also her ability to draw straight lines into play, which is a callback done a couple of times before. Agot shares the Lich sign with everyone, Richie helps with her skill of smaller, repeatedly drawn seals, and Olugio creates a bait with previously invented snackstones, in the same way girls baited Beltaruid in the Great Hall arc, although the girls didn't have the snackstones in the sacks at that moment. It's a new addition for the Leech attack made by Olugio. The whole setup and cooperation of characters makes the fight with the Leech feels like a final boss battle, a really important one that marks the end of the longest arc in the story so far. Later chapters don't have this tone, they are more tragic and focus on a single character moments. It's nothing grand for now, but to be entirely honest, there's no need for it. We are not different. A lie, that's how the whole essay was planned to be titled in the first place, and I don't know if it's gonna be like that in the end. We will see. But the topic is so philosophical, so complex, and it goes well beyond the whole manga that I couldn't stop thinking about it, because the answer is, as always, yes and no. Am I different from a friend that got me into Witch Hat Atelier? Definitely, we are two other people and our only connection is a study program and a love for Witch Hat, but that's about it. At the same time, we actually aren't different when it comes to profession we have. We are both artists, and if I could use a metaphor here, it would be clear that we are both witches. While my other friend, well, yes, we share our first language, so we have similarities, but he's not an artist, but a creator. He knows about anime production, so if I would add him to the metaphor, he would be a townsfolk, probably experienced or a rich one due to his knowledge about the media, but still a townsfolk that doesn't know how to do magic. And it may seem a little weird for now for you guys, but I want to put an emphasis on this right at the beginning, so that all the elements will come up to your mind again once I will talk about the story elements that connects to this. As loud as Tetia is, she's a witch I will probably mention the least in the video, because unlike 3 other apprentices, she's still waiting for her backstory, explaining why she's so optimistic, what her goal in life is, or ruin our perception of her as a joyful child. That doesn't mean she isn't important for the story, as she's the second apprentice that shows signs of... how to say it so it doesn't sound like they like brim hats. Just like Tarta and Koko, she recognizes what's wrong with witches' rules and actively disagrees with them. First though, she meets the prince. It's not a long interaction, but the short time they spend together is surely worth noting. The prince expresses how he can't just join the Silver Eve because of his position, while Tetia, with her optimistic, makes his day possibly a little better by swapping clothes with him so that he can be a witch, just for a day. The most interesting part comes when the prince states this: I suppose it's just that I spend a lot of time hearing that witches are no ordinary people like us, but something else entirely. Hearing the statement from the prince himself means that most of the royalty and possibly townsfolk feel that way, separated from witches by a barrier, maybe even consider them another species. Tetia is shocked, corrects the prince, saying that love to magic is the connector between them, and they surely can be and will be friends from this point on. The gift of magic is strangely often shown as more of a burden than a miracle. Witches, no matter what happens, are not allowed to tell anyone the truth about magic. This is against the pact, and if it occurs, should be severely punished. Unless you're Qifrey and you have a partially good reason to take this girl to help you hunt brimcaps. This event is also very useful from the writer's perspective, as the isekai setting created here allows for the natural and totally reasonable info dumps telling Koko and readers how the witch's world works. Anyhow, this relationship between groups leads to the situation similar to the one in chapter 39, where Olugio meets a boy with some kind of malfunction of his ears. We are not sure what it is, but it makes his life painful. His mother thinks that it is a sign, a talent of his that actually means boy should be a witch. As tragic as it is, Olugio can't just take him, even if he may think about it deeply inside, as that's not the case. You can't be born as a witch. Fire Witch, being the man he is, offered help instead, a magic scarf that eases the pain, and leaves them saying, sorry, there isn't more I can do. From the reader's perspective, this may serve as a starting point of a new, continuously repeating plot that this event is essentially about. Difference between witches and outsiders. That's of course not the first time, as most of the chapters cover Koko discovering new things she has never seen or knew about in her townsfolk life, but from this point on, a shifted perspective is applied. There are times like the one described seconds ago that shows how witches feel about townsfolk. They don't feel better than them, but pity for the lies that keep them in chains, that keep both groups separate. Koko later meets with the same dilemma. When her contraptions, the wing cloak made previously for Kustas, gets a lot of attention as an outdoor attraction for Starry Sword, Mr. Nolmoas and Tartak stand at the Silver Eve. One of the children that tried it comes to Koko with a simple, "Thank you, Miss Witch, I love your contraption." The girl wants to be a witch in the future, supposedly to make other children smile as well, but her mom tells her that's impossible. Young girl's enthusiasm sets Koko to tears as she sees herself in this child. She once was the very same girl that stands now in front of her, and yet, even if her dreams came true, she can't do anything about girls' dreams because of the rules. Reading this little scene in chapter 50 hit me at almost every possible level and made me really appreciate the Witch Hat Atelier, encouraged me to think deeply about the whole topic that eventually led to creating the script and video in general. Another interesting one is chapter 67, where Tetia, Richie and Agot learn how to treat wounded from a bunch of outsiders. There is a catch though, any affirmations with medicine aren't allowed to witches. Getting this knowledge, the most basic of treatment techniques that can very much save lives, is banned for them by the pact. Tetia, as loud as she is, almost says that exact thing to Knights Morales, but is quickly stopped by her friends. What is really interesting in this case is Agot telling her to be smart about it, as she has also thought about this numerous times. Can you believe that? Agot Arcalum thinking about ignoring the principles after she was already accused once? Crazy. As it turns out, there may be more witches in this world that aren't happy about the way things are now, and we just don't know about them yet. They work in the shadows, just like Brimcaps, but unlike them, their methods aren't destructive, they don't kill. It's like a third fraction in the universe that doesn't even know about itself. Let's get back to chapter 45, as I skipped it on purpose before. In it, Tartagh really wants to teach Kustas magic before he and his adopted father Dagda depart from Kaln. He of course doesn't do it at the end, but the thought alone scares Koko. Can they do it? Should they do it? There's so much advantage from teaching Kustas magic, the same with teaching him about herbs chapters before, that it should be natural, and yet, again, their hands are tied by the principles. Later chapters reveal one of the scenarios that could happen, and it's perhaps the worst one. Tartagh is the first one to show quite obviously that he doesn't like lies that witches tell, which only escalates as the story progresses. He doesn't trust Qifrey and ultimately leaves with Brimcaps in chapter 87. He doesn't make that decision on his own, as he has a seal marked on his skin and his story isn't finished yet. We don't know if he's gonna become a real Brim or maybe he's just spying on them in that way, but he's the first one that decided to stop living the lie the other witches want them to. To add to all this, King Dunreldi seems to be on their side as well. While he's fully aware that witches can't study or know anything about medicine, as shown in his conversations with Beltaroid, he still tries his best to make the best of it. After the leeches attack, the King of Life bows to Beltaroid, symbolically thanking them for their job, but also, what's probably more important, further separating humankind from witchkind. Beltaroid is frightened by this, which shouldn't be a surprise because, after all, the Three Wise don't want this type of hierarchy in the world where townsfolk give about to witches. We don't know if the society looked like that in the time before the pact, but it's clear that bowing before witches may be resembling those times, which the Three Wise are trying to prevent. Even Dagda points out this separation in chapter 85. After possibly hours of sitting in the healing spire with sleeping Kustas, who became a full-fledged witch, he notices how nice people are to him at this moment, while the only thing different between Dagda now and on the streets is existence of Kustas' cap next to him, as people mistake him for being a witch. They are nicer to him because of that. At the end, it's clear that society in Witch Hat grows into two separate ones, and it's difficult to say why. Partially because of the pact that made magic a secret for the selected few, but it's not like witches and townsfolk aren't without blame. It's the witches that created the myth, this illusion of being different with their lies and living under the ocean, but the myths about being someone else than human probably come from the outsiders themselves. Silver Eve doesn't seem to serve its purpose anymore. The main event of the longest arc in the manga so far was created for witches and normal folks to sing together and feel like one, but when we read the manga, even during the Silver Eve, or maybe especially in this arc, both fractions feel as far from each other as ever. That's the state of the world for now, but as it's seen with the prince or people Tetia, Richie and Agot meet during the leech attack, it certainly can change thanks to both townsfolk and the witches of newer generation. And I can't get rid of an idea that it could be a parallel to the real world, a criticism of our classy society and a trend that rich people become more richer and poor people become poorer, but told in the fantasy setting. That's just my little theory, of course, and I have no proof of that. Shirahama did not say any of this. Both sides. Koko was extremely lucky being found by Qifrey and given a chance to study proper magic. Kustas, on the other hand, didn't get this chance. He was found by Brimcaps and taught forbidden magic that made him seemingly an antagonist of the Silver Eve arc. But is that true? We don't know too much about Ininya's and Kustas' first encounter and the time spent before the Silver Eve, but it's fair to say that the main difference between the two outsiders that became witches is their personality. Don't get me wrong, mentors had their own big role in creation of those witches, but the initial response to the fact of magic is what makes Koko seek the answer to her problems while driving Kustas to madness. Kustas first appears in chapter 10 in the Staircase River accident where he gets injured. That causes him to stay at Calm Medical Facility where he gets to properly meet Tartak and later Koko as well. A witch's duo creates a wing cloak for him so that his broken legs won't stop him and Dagda from traveling, and with this new equipment they continue their journey. The very same night they leave, Dagda is killed by some bandits and a brimmed witch, Ininya, shows up sometime later. When Kustas learns the truth about magic, he also realizes that the two witches he considered as friends lied to him and decided to let him struggle with broken legs. Kustas learns and draws the counterclock spell on Dagda's body, which brings him back to life, but only for a limited amount of time, after which Dagda dies once again. Drawing seal again rewinds time once again, keeping father's mind in a loop and driving Kustas crazy, as he isn't ready to let him go, and must watch him die over and over again. That's also a point where the mystery plays a very big role in the story, an introduction to new Kustas. His legs are now replaced with tree roots, and of course he knows about magic. I don't think I was the only person that thought that tree legs were some kind of a magic at first, just a spell we haven't encountered yet. The truth, however, is that they are in fact an aftermath of Silverwood infection. Finding out the secret breaks his trust to his friends, so there was not much needed to be added by the Ininya to quickly befriend him and convince him to help. He is driven by hatred towards witches not because of Ininya's teaching, but because of his own experience, which is far stronger than any propaganda. Playing with this new toy, a counterclock spell, drives him crazy as he doesn't understand the nature of the seal drawn onto Dagda and many other people from Magpul during the leech attack. It's worth mentioning that his feelings towards witches don't make him want any kind of revenge. He's just disappointed and considers them not trustworthy. Here we can already see the difference between the two. Koko accepted the fact that witches lie to other people. She isn't okay with it, but it doesn't make her hate witches. She has forgiven them, but she still wishes things were different, while Kustas felt betrayed and his attitude made him look antagonistic towards almost everyone. So Kustas follows Ininya to a Silver Eve where they meet Koko and Tartak again, and they give them a special task: win the procession and get to visit the king, inviting Kustas and Ininia with them. This plan eventually fails as the Lich attacks, and we don't really know what was the purpose of this plan. We can say for sure that Kustas wanted to get Dagda to the King of Life to save his father figure from the influence of the spell. His intentions are morally good, and with that he could be classified as an anti-villain. Anti-villain is an antagonist that has morally good goals they want to achieve, but the methods they use are questionable. Kustas would fit into this trope. All he wants is to save Dagda and other people from dying, but he uses a counterclock spell on a human flesh, action forbidden by the law of magic. This also causes their minds to be trapped in a loop, so his methods are questionable on every level. I have to add though that I can't be sure about it. Anti-villain seems to be the closest as we can get to describe character like Kustas, but there may be a better character type that I'm not aware of, so if there is, please tell me and I will note this in the description if that happens. But does Ininia have the same altruistic motives? I can't tell. During the Lich attack, Kustas abandons the Brim Cap and instead focuses on helping people he feels most associated with, the Magpul Society. Again, his goals are good. He wants to save those people from death, from suffering, but as a counterclock spell is probably the only one he knows, his methods are against the witches' rules and ruins people's memory. Kustas himself seems to doubt the fact that what he does is right when in chapter 72 he shouts to Julie with the words "Draw it, prove to me I'm right." It is true that his actions ultimately led to invention of the operation table in the Healing Spire, but he didn't invent it. He served as an inspiration to use counterclock spell, but without drawing it on the body, and couldn't expect that to happen. That's also where Kustas finally talks with Koko. It's their final resolution for now. Koko used a guidance orb, a magic contraption that guides users to objects via tracking their source, to find him with Master Qifrey. There it's even more empathized how close Koko and Kustas are, with girl learning from a tragedy not to use forbidden magic, and the boy seeing it as the only way to prevent it from happening, even if for just a day. The boy rests with Dagda in the Healing Spire, waiting for the man to get proper treatment. Before that though, Father admits that Kustas is like a son to him, and this happens. Kustas becomes a tree, and to rewind this process, Dagda sacrifices himself. And that's all, apart from one comment from Ininia about his shallow anger for the world. Even though his frustration wasn't as complex as expected, he's one of the most nuanced characters in the story, morally grey, lost and driven crazy by magic that turned out to be the biggest horror of his life instead of a wonder he thought it was when used by pointed caps. Koko struggled with similar thoughts, with her mother turned into stone, her friend into a scale wolf, and both friend and a master into a tree. The thing that differs those characters is possibly the hope, which seems to have lost after another to save Dagda, revive Dagda. But also it could be the fact that Koko had her friends to cheer her up a bit when she was at her lowest. That's not the end for Kustas. After Dagda's death, the tree lets him go and he is taken away by a brand new witch named Restis, apparently a master of Ninia. As you know, Tartak joins them and it's clear that we will see them again. My only hope is that it's not gonna be as long as waiting for Iuni and Elira to come back, which hasn't happened yet. You can't be happy. The community of Romanon is a perfect example of that. Their wealth led them to ignorance towards outsiders even before the pact and isolated the city until they turned against their own people and created golden statues out of them. Romanon later collapsed and the only resemblance of that is the Serpent Back Road, the place of the second test. Koko, Tetia, Qifrey and Elira meet what is left from them in chapter 24. people turned into gold and experiencing suffering. They give them a riddle, to which the answer is lack of comfort. Koko then decides to help them by giving them snackstone, but as Romanon people connected to the arcane of amplification, it results in melting them. All of them. Their suffering ends, but so does their life and the legend about their city. Imagine you have a parasite, a plant that uses its power to help you with any disability you have. Broken lips, replaced by the branches. Other things, well, we are not entirely sure if it can help with everything you have, but either way, sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Now, whenever there is a profit, there is a cost. This time, whenever you feel safe or comfortable, the tree takes control, using your body's nutrients to grow, killing you in the process. This is the case with Silverwood tree, the most fascinating species we've encountered so far in the series, and the biggest plot twist so far, as the reveal not only explains Kustas' wood legs, who eventually experiences the process of turning into a tree in front of our eyes in chapter 85, but moreover, just 3 chapters later we learn that Qifrey awaits the very same fate. I mean, Kustas is ultimately saved by Dagda's death, but you get the point, the tree is waiting for both Qifrey and Kustas. The first time universe hears about Qifrey's existence that we know of is from Beltaroid's unboxing video uploaded to WitchTube years before Koko was even born. I can't believe I said that. After that viral video that made witches believe that Beltaroid still should be a wise in teaching, he gets himself even more backing by taking the kid literally taken from the coffin under his wings. Soon after that, a young zombie meets his wife. I mean husband. I mean best friend we all know and love, especially Qifrey, young Olugio, who was described in the section before. Qifrey doesn't like living in the Great Hall, he wants to go on an adventure, a pursuit even, to find brimmed caps and hopefully his right eye stolen from him, as well as some memories. That's where we're gonna shuffle a bit, as that reveal and a story I just told you is the first justification of Qifrey's actions we get in the series at the point of chapter 36. Before that, Qifrey was a very mysterious fellow that caught our attention by speaking via a communicator with a friend who turned out to be Alyra, erasing memories of Mr. Nolnoa, avoiding Tartak's questions, attempting to locate brimmed caps, has been badass as fuck, and knew the answer for the Romanon riddle, the lack of comfort I mentioned at the very start of this section. The justification seems good enough and presumably ends the little mystery plotline, but don't be ridiculous to think that this is where the thing ends. Oh no, that's just the start. And it starts immediately in the very same chapter with a short conversation between Olugio and Qifrey, where the Fire Witch tries to ask Koko's master about the real reason behind taking the girl to the Atelier. This conversation is cut short by Beltaroid, giving us, the readers, something to wait for, a resolution of a conflict. This takes place in one of Fan's favorite chapters with the number 40, where Qifrey has a talk with Olugio. The end is unusual, as the Water Witch ends up clearing memories of his good friend, and the readers are left for speculations once again. The conversation itself circles around Qifrey's eye and past. He's slowly losing vision and therefore decides to continue the pursuit of brimcaps. Olugio is worried that the task will consume him in a way and that he's planning to use Koko as a bait, but from what we can read, he seems to deny that theory and he feels good as a teacher. Koko isn't the reason he is after brimcaps again, the eyes and the memories are, while in the same time he didn't state that he's not gonna use Koko later. We also get one of the flashbacks about the duo's adventure into the Tower of Tombs, a long time ago where only Qifrey made it inside. Unfortunately, we don't really come back to this topic for another 40-ish chapters, where after helping Koko find Kustas, Qifrey seems to know a little too much about his state. Kustas blooms when he feels safe and then comes back to life thanks to Dagda sacrificing himself. The whole situation makes Koko very suspicious about Qifrey, and then it's revealed in chapter 88. Qifrey is a host of a Silverwood tree himself. Reading this chapter at 11 PM, I literally started crying. What a magnificent twist. Is that the whole reason he's so cold towards people? Probably. And that's the topic of the whole new arc of the manga. In it we learn a little part of Qifrey's past after he got to the Great Hall, met Olugio, who from a rival quickly became a partner, friend, and they had adventures ever since. Not without flaws, and not without worries though, as Qifrey's burden, both his past and his eye, keep him at bay and away from his good friend. When one time Qifrey starts to bloom in front of Olugio, the young Master of Fire heads to the Tower of Tombs they were planning to go to find a solution and save his tree friend. When he gets back, he makes an offer. Olugio will erase his memories so that Qifrey won't feel comfortable again and will come back to life. No protests from him can stop Oli from his plan, and soon enough he wakes up with no idea of the situation. The only real implication of this event are swapped ornaments between their caps. And soon enough it happens again and again and again. The truth about Qifrey's right eye, the Silverwood tree effect on it, is almost like a time loop trap we can experience in other stories like The Edge of Tomorrow from 2014 or The Tatami Galaxy from 2010, but instead of the world being reversed, only his friend is, which creates the loop of misunderstandings and grief for Qifrey, who is desperately trying to keep Olugio's promise and stay alive, watching his best pal losing memories of the incident over and over again. And I'm gonna say that Olugio is a true villain here, as he knows exactly what Qifrey's life is going to look like after that, and he literally says that while he is smiling, and that's naturally a little sarcastic. The real reason why Qifrey erased Olugio's memories in chapter 40 is a mystery to this day. Even after all the revelations in recent chapters, it couldn't be to prevent the treeification process, because according to flashbacks, Olugio does that willingly. It can be either because he thinks about using Koko, or he just doesn't want him to be involved in this as long as he can. The only way to find out is probably meeting the Bremtcaps again. It can be a little controversial here, but I personally read the Silverwood infection as maybe a metaphor for introvertics. People that don't socialize and aren't close with others because it's just not comfortable for them, and in Qifrey's case, it would kill him. I am an introvert and I feel like this is a little stretched explanation. All of us have different needs of social interactions and we don't surely die after getting to know someone, and I can assure you most of us are happy with our lifestyles, but Silverwood could be a way to represent or visualize social anxiety. Maybe. Qifrey is a character that clearly has a lot to reveal for us in the story, but Dev is hot on his heels. I'm always so excited whenever manga decides to spend just another moment with him. He's so captivating with his mysterious aura around him. Witch Hat Atelier is truly great piece of media, with an amazing story and glorious variety of characters to sympathize with, and well distributed themes in every chapter that mainly focuses about the acceptance to other people because we're not that far apart from each other. My love to this series is exact reason I can also see the flaws here and there. It feels very weird how fast Knights Morales got report about magic at the Staircase River. It's very comfortable from a story perspective that Koko and Tetia pass the second test even though they shouldn't, and it would be very interesting if they didn't, just to see that difference between girls, but as you can tell from this video, that's not the point of the story that is about connecting, so it works for the theme. Galga remembering the city layout even though he lost memory of magic and his name is very convenient. Also, given that Silver Eve and the Leech Attack arc is about Counterclock Seal, was it necessary for Koko to explain the plan of defeating the Leech? I personally don't think so, but I can see people that wouldn't understand that otherwise, so it's more of a pickup. And last but not least, the Atelier's layout is inconsistent and it's changing throughout chapters, and it's driving me insane at the moment, and it's diabolical and I hate it. Of course, it's kinda a joke, but also not. I'm literally going crazy about the fucking layout of the Atelier. But all those little things doesn't change my opinion about the manga. It just hurts my feelings a little. There are so many things we can still talk about in World of Witch Hat, and many topics like platonic, for now, relationship between lots of characters, the whole Agot's backstory, or a section with a general overview of masterfully crafted storytelling by Shirahama were cut from this video so that I can finish it once the anime premieres. That being said, I would love to talk more about it, and if you do as well, tell me in the comments so I know that someone will be waiting for part 2. Thank you for listening to this massive video and I hope you liked it. Feel free to share your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Huge thanks for Pivot that reviewed the script for this video. You can find his socials down in the description, as well as credits for every art that I have used in this video. And hopefully see you in the next one.